let's say the ingredients in the food here, and also how Americans have been brought up eating these foods. It's also a determining factor in terms of eventually what the weight pattern is going to be.
Move over, baby boomers. It's time for Gen XYZ. It's time to stop waiting on the world to change. It's time to be the change. It's time to stop thinking about how your life can be better. It's time to start taking action, massive action to improve your life. Join Zach Winter and Mark Adair Rios every week as we learn how others had the grit, determination, and conviction to 10x their lives, and as we explore ways that can help you 10x your life.
Hi all, and welcome to another edition of the 10x for Gen XYZ podcast. I'm Zach Winter.
And I'm Mark Adair Rios.
And today we're happy to have as our guest, Leslie Chen. For 8 years, Leslie's been helping high-achieving professionals who struggle with food obsessions and problematic weight patterns create a positive relationship with food while gaining the best body they can have. So we're really excited to have you on the show, Leslie. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Mark and Zach. I'm so excited to be here. I know you guys serve an extraordinary group of people. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with them.
I love it. Thanks
Great.
for coming on.
Well, why don't we start with your background? Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to pursue this type of a career.
Okay, so I never thought I would pursue this type of career to begin with, to be honest. I grew up in China for the first almost 20 years. I was in China. Then I came to the United States for higher education. And then I went back to China. I was in Shanghai to work in the management consulting industry for 2 years. And then I came back to New York City and kept doing the same industry until about a couple of years later when I realized I need to do something on my own. But even at that time, I didn't have an idea as to what I would do. So I was actually looking, not just looking, but actually exploring different projects. I founded a company which was venture-backed. That was the first one, but it was 90%, over 90% of that was centered on technology, which I had no idea about. So I actually had a partner who took control of that part, and we didn't really have an alignment in terms of how to grow the business. So I terminated that venture. My second venture was called Rose Alley, is the online magazine for specifically Asian women in the North America. It was growing very well. And we had some really good campaigns that was supported by United Nations and also the world leaders, influencers in all backgrounds. It was also featured on Chelsea's show. So I was getting all the aura, but we had trouble monetizing it. So that's the second venture I just gave it up. And the third one is this one. I started this one as a side gig. Didn't think that it will become a business though, but it was more like a side, not even side gig, but rather a side hobby because I was not charging for it, right? And then when the first two venture did not work well, I started, going back to the drawing board, see what should I do. Then I made a little experiment and found out this one is the way to go. Mm-hmm. I can talk about the experiment later, but for now, if you have any questions, I can answer them.
So let's talk a little bit from a higher level about what your approach to food is.
My approach to food is everything. No,
I say the same thing. I approach all food.
It's everything. It's really everything. And no offense, guys, really nothing about everything opposite, almost everything opposite against what you guys have been educated on in terms of the food rules in the United States. I'll give you an example. So one thing that really shocked me when I first got to the States, well, I gained 50 pounds, by the way, just by coming here. So I was trying to lose my own weight, right? So the first thing I heard, which really shocked me, was if you want to lose weight, you should cut carbs, all right? You should not have over 20 grams of carbohydrates, and that would include fruits, vegetable, and starch. And I was shocked. You know why? Because in China, carbohydrates and starch are life. Like we have different types of starch and rice, vermicelli, noodle, steamed buns, dumplings were having a ton of them every single day, every single meal, multiple times a day. And I never had a weight problem. Until then, I was in the States. All of a sudden, I was hearing that. So I followed this diet called Atkins, which you
Atkins diet, sure.
Yeah, that was the old name, but now people call it ketogenics. All right.
Mhm.
Lost 20 pounds at the beginning. And before I lost 20 pounds, I've only gained 30 pounds. Now, after ketogenics.
I have a quick question, just real quick. So when you came from China,
Yeah.
what do you think caused you to gain the weight that you know what I mean? Like, was it just you started adopting the diet and kind of went too far, or like what?
Were you
was going
eating
on there?
processed foods that you weren't
Yeah.
eating in China?
So just giving you some context here. I was in a school cafeteria. So I lived on campus. So we went to the school cafeteria, which worked like a buffet. And in the buffet, 80% of those food were ice creams, the different flavors, 10 different flavors of ice cream, 5 different flavors of pizza, and everything, like whatever you want to eat, right? And the one thing I never knew about in China was counting calories. Nobody did it. And I was used to just trust my body. And that did not work when I first came here, because the food here are all apparently superfoods. So the first 30 pounds gained in 3 months, that was entirely because I didn't know the food better, you know. But then, like I said, I started doing all the diets. The final 20 pounds that was gained on top of the 30 pounds was rather because of this yo-yo dieting and dieters obsession. I was depriving myself, then it backfired, and I wanted to compensate by eating more. So I was in a psychological vicious cycle that pushed me to overeat day by day, meal after meal. So it was actually different. First 30 pounds, because I didn't have the knowledge. Go ahead, Zach.
Then you went on the Atkins, or now it would be called the keto diet.
Keto
You
was
lost the weight,
me.
but it's a very strict diet and it's hard to maintain. So eventually, are you saying you burned out and you gained back all the weight that you had lost plus an additional
Plus more,
20
plus
pounds?
more. Yes, plus additional 20 pounds. And I was really beating myself hard. I woke up every morning around 5:30 because our gym started, campus gym was starting at 6 a.m. in the morning. So I woke up every morning around 5:30. I went to the gym to run for at least 1 hour, just doing pure cardio for the morning. And in the afternoon, I spent about 1 hour in gym, another hour in gym doing weights to make sure, because really I was following everything that the guru have told us on the internet. You have to build muscle strength, right? You have to burn fat by building muscle, etc. So I was doing all of that, right? Cardio and diets, and never worked. And I just went back to China during that summer break with 50 pounds more weight. My mom was picking me up in the airport, and we were just literally 2-3 feet from each other, and she couldn't recognize me at the beginning. I had to tell her it's me. Then she realized I was right in front of her. She did not make any comment, which I'm so grateful for. And she did not make any comment about what made you balloon up, something like that, because I always imagined that she would. And then I went back to China. My mom noticed, apparently she noticed the weight difference, all right? But her way of handling it really amazed me, because it made me feel like I didn't even know this woman before. She acted like nothing happened. She just brought me back into the old way of living during that 1 month's time in China. And for me, mentally, I was telling myself, screw it. I'm probably going to gain more weight when I was in China, but I'm not going to diet here. I'm going to wait until I get back to the States and start those gazillions of diets again. So that was my mental background message, right? And she was treating me as if I was never gaining the weight. So went back to China eating the old food.
Which was
one day,
tell us about your diet in China.
So it's very typical in the morning. We probably have some porridge and some like little dishes, right? So rice, right? And that was, to me back then, was a red flag after learning about Atkins theory. Now during lunch, usually there are 2 to 3 different entrees, which will be a mixture of meat and vegetable, and you eat it with rice, okay? Another red flag, another taboo, right? And usually during the afternoon, we'll have some desserts. the small snacks, right? It's not like something formal. You can choose to eat or not. For dinner, it's pretty much like lunch. So 2 to 3, depending on how many people you have in the household, but 2 to 3 different entrees, stir fries, soup. Some are pure vegetable dishes, some are pure meat dishes, and we usually have something that blended up. So
tell us about quantity control in your Chinese diet, and the percentage of the meat in the overall meals.
So it's me and my mom. It will be different depending on different people you have in your household. For us at that time, it was just me and my mom, and we had 2 probably 8 to 9 inch dishes, okay, which is full of whatever it was. Maybe it's a stir fry if we did, or braised pork, okay. And then we have a big bowl. Usually it's about 12 inches big, and it's a soup, and usually it's not creamy soup, it's clear soup. Usually you have the chicken or fish or maybe some vegetable mixture. You make that soup depending on the recipe as well. And in terms of the rice, I eat with the 4-inch diameter bowl.
Okay.
This big and like 4-inch deep. And we probably, I probably have, in terms of the amount of rice we put in there, cooked rice, it's probably 70 to 80% of the bowl is full. So that's like one meal.
Okay.
And you basically take your meat, so you take stuff and put it on top of the rice, or do you eat the rice separately from the meat?
Depending on what kind of person you are. For me, I've always been a meat person, so I rather just finish the meat first and then come down to whatever I have. But sometimes some other people like to mix it together, right? Sometimes people will pick up the meat, take a bite of that, and then get some vegetables, and then a few bites of the rice, and then just shuffle like this. Some people like to blend it in all together, like mix it into a big bowl and then take it from there. It depends on the person.
So just from what you've said, it sounds like in comparing and contrasting the 2 diets,
right?
In the US, lots of processed foods, no portion control, cafeteria style, you eat as much as you want. Those are all foods that are designed to make you want to eat more, increase your cravings. In China, more whole foods, less processed foods, and it sounds like the portion control was much more limiting to being
that's one part of it. That's one part of it. There are 2 important elements of that too. The first one is, in the United States, it's so easy for us to overeat. For example, I would make sandwiches for myself, right? And just one tiny slice of extra cheese on it will add to, if we're really counting calories, there's anywhere between 100 to 120 calories. Just one slice of
fat, right?
Right, and it is right. And also, if you want something like one extra tablespoon of jelly on your bagel, that's probably 80 more calories.
Pure sugar.
Right, it's pure sugar. So it's so easy for us to overeat here if we don't be aware of what we eat. But in China, we don't have to. It's whole food. Everything is real food. So one thing about real food is that it does nourish you. It does make you satisfied. On the other hand, it does make you feel full easier, much more easily. So that's one element of it. The other element of it is that the level of, let's say, the ingredients in the food here, and also how Americans have been brought up eating these food, is also a determining factor in terms of eventually what the weight pattern is going to be. I'll give you an example. When I first came, I remember this first time when I ate the ice cream. So remember I told you there are 10 different flavors of ice cream in the cafeteria. I was with a bunch of local friends, American friends. I wanted to blend in. So everybody got ice cream. I got myself one too. The first bite of that ice cream, can never forget it. It was so sweet that I had no way of swallowing it. I only did it because they did it. Like I didn't want to stand out in the wrong way. So I made myself swallow it, and I started having negative effects, negative reaction in the body for a few days afterwards. I didn't realize by then it was because of the ice cream, but now learning about how the food ingredients have been like, yeah, now I have, on hindsight, I know it's because of that. Okay. I couldn't adapt to the flavor, but people brought up here, they grew up here, already adapted to it. They don't even feel that sweet. Because I remember this one conversation I had with my friend, a roommate who was American, and I asked her, do you find the ice cream too sweet? And she was like, what do you mean by too sweet? I think it's just fine. Okay. So 3 months later, because we've been having a lot of ice creams for me, I've already adapted to that.
Sure.
Now my taste buds have been trained to be very comfortable with the kind of, with the level, extent of sweet that I was having on day in and day out. So I no longer felt it was too sweet for me. And sugar is just one of the examples of many things here. It not only happened to me because we had a like foreign students association. We knew a lot of other Asian students, Asian friends, other campuses, other schools. And this is one of the topics we always communicated with each other about. Yeah, what do you think do you think the food here is really like dessert here is so sweet? Everybody had this same consensus, right? And then I think 8 out of 10 of my friends, female friends back then, they gained weight, at least 30 pounds, 50 pounds, normal, okay? My parents came to the United States just a few years ago, I think it was 2016 or 17 for the first time. First night they were here, we were in Olive Garden. I ordered some, forgot what kind of cake it was, but some cake dessert, just for them to try. Neither of them could do more than 2 bites.
Too sweet.
Crazy.
To the level that you don't even call that sweet.
That's crazy.
All right, but you guys, you don't feel that. So it's so easy for you to overeat.
I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people do. At least in my experience, what I've seen is the apparent sugars sometimes are too sweet, right? And we stay away from them. Oh, I can't have those Oreos, or if we're not indulging.
Right.
It's the unapparent sugars that are in foods that add to that we don't really know about. We might not necessarily, it may be an underlying sweetness, or maybe a compound that turns into sugar, like breaks down into sugar in our bodies, that adds on to the refined sugar part that we're eating, that creates, you know.
Well, the way foods are created, foods are engineered now, right? Most foods are engineered in the lab, and they're made to either be salty or very sweet, because they know that triggers you to want to have more of it, right?
We already have scientific findings showing that your addiction to like food, the sugar actually causes the same kind of addiction in your brain, just like cocaine does, even more than that.
That's why corn is the biggest crop in the world. Is the vast majority of it is turned into corn syrup, which is an enormous ingredient in all types of processed foods. You
know what? When I'm listening to you talking about, it's all right. I think what you said is all right. But when I'm listening to it, I immediately know that I'm talking to American. Because Americans are analyzing food, the composition, the engineering of it all the time. Americans, not kidding.
Secretly, we're freaked out, man. We're freaked out about this stuff that we're
calorie counting. In China, we eat corns a lot too. I eat corns usually a lot of time. If it's summer, we always eat corns for breakfast. And it's just, corns, you boil it, right? 15 minutes later, you just eat it like that. In its very natural and raw form. We never thought of corn as a kind of enemy before. But now all of a sudden, I came to the United States, every kind of food, which I loved, ate before, became enemy. And they never caused a problem for us.
But I think Zach made a real big distinction. It's not just corn,
right?
It's the corn. A couple of things. The corn crop, has kind of taken over most other crops, and the output of that really has to do with the corn syrup, which is what they're turning into, which you probably don't have in China. They're creating
we are having more and more now.
Well, you know what's interesting? Years ago, I read this book called The Blue Zone, and it was a study on identifying locations in the world where people were living longer. right? And they identified 5 or 7 blue zones. One of them was in Asia, it was in Okinawa, Japan.
In
But
Japan.
in all of the areas,
Right.
the 2 common characteristics was, one, they ate non-processed foods, low meat diet, non-processed foods,
Right.
and 2, they exercised.
Yeah.
Either a lot of walking or
Yeah.
you know, or more traditional exercising. And
Yeah.
what was interesting about the one in Okinawa is the prior generation were living very, very long, you know, like average age, I don't know, 90 plus. But the current generation weren't, because they had adopted an American
Yeah.
way of eating. So they were eating
Yeah.
lots of fast foods, lots of
Yeah.
processed foods, and they were gaining weight and having
Yeah.
the typical problems that come along with being overweight.
It's not just Okinawa, it's also China. I'm seeing that in recent years too, because people are getting, it's not just about people getting busy, to be honest. It's actually more about the old perception that everything Westerner is better. Everything Western is better. So I'll give you it's another interesting story. You know, Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut is just like a shabby place where you buy some cheap pizza in the United States, right? But actually, starting from, well, how old was I? I was in high school, the junior year, freshman high school year. We had our first Pizza Hut in my city, which is the 8 million people metropolitan city. And we opened the first Pizza Hut. It's like a royal palace. And it's like a royal palace. Everything is so high end. You have to literally have to wear the ties and suit in order to get into it. If you're a man, if you're a woman, you have to you also well dressed. And they give you all the atmosphere that we serve high end food, because pizza is super expensive. I remember the tiny, like 6-inch small pizza will be close to 50 China dollar. And at that time, one person's monthly income, at that time, talking about 25 years ago, would be about $800, 800 China dollar. So that's high end. Also on TV, we have this classic TV ad line saying, if you love her, take her to McDonald's. So we were implanted this ideology that everything Western is more advanced, more scientific. So we started adopting more of that. Nowadays, a lot of people are regretting now.
Well, I wonder if, like, you know, it's funny because whenever I've traveled out of the country, you know, I've actually never eaten from chain foods, but I always wonder, like the McDonald's, say in France or in Brazil or whatever, like I've just like, what's the point? And so, but I always wonder, being an American, if it would taste different, like if because they source their food from an entirely different, most of their food from an entirely different area of the country. I'm sure they get the, you know, the sauce packets and things like that from, you know, from America, stuff that can be shipped, but they're sourcing their meats. They're making their breads locally, or at least regionally. You know, all of the produce is local or regional. Right. And so I just wonder if the tastes are different, that it's not going to be a different, you know, a direct.
To be honest, your Kentucky really sucks. The KFC, the KFC, Kentucky, whatever chicken.
Yeah, the one here. Yeah. The one here.
It's the worst fried chicken I've had around the world. I've been to Europe. I grew up in Asia. Our KFC compared to what you have here is like legendary. I'm not kidding with you. Okay. I think they really treated food seriously there, even though it's actually fast food.
Well, and so that brings up a really good point, right? Like we have a franchise system where they're just trying to knock out units, you know, get as many stores open as possible and trying to be as efficient and systematized as possible. Where if you're the first Pizza Hut, the first KFC in Shanghai or in, you know, Beijing or wherever, that's a novelty. They haven't created those systems to mass duplicate. It's like, put it all into this, you know, put it all into this one business.
Yeah. You're right. And they had to do a lot of localization too regarding the recipes. I remember McDonald's offered something very Chinese for breakfast as some kind of porridge. It's actually healthy. But if I'm running these recipes from American mindset, okay, I might say that this is probably too much sodium. But to be honest, when your overall lifestyle is healthy, you don't need to worry about that, just a few extra grams of sodium. So what I'm feeling in the US, that in terms of mindset, people are overly focused on the small things like the ingredients, the grams, the carbs, and they really lose the entire picture. Okay, it's people. Another example, people spend, they want to get onto a healthy lifestyle, and all of a sudden there's a day when they had friends over, they ate some ice cream, and the time when they ate ice cream is probably only 15 to 20% of the entire time, right? But they spend the remaining 80% of time to 85% of time regretting about the ice cream or wanting to do more exercise or wanting to do a stricter diet because of that. Now you're ruining 100% of your time. And that's how you become really not only diet focused, but also, this weight loss obsessed. And that mentality is what's determining where you're going to be in terms of well-being, in terms of your weight. Because, hey, if you're having a dieter's mentality, you're going to have the dieter's reality. If you are trained or programmed to focus and, really to look at everything by number, and to also make every single decision by that number, which, by the way, aren't even correct or accurate most of the time, okay? You're always going to be living by the rules. You will always be neglecting or not able to have this experience of living freely. Versus in China, we don't count calories. Like I said, before I came here, I didn't even know the term counting calories. Okay, but we care about the overall balance, how you spend your day, what kind of activities you have been doing, what kind of things or people you have to be present with. Okay, then even though we don't spend extra time in the gym, because we're working and busy with these activities and being very focused on things that we need to be doing, we're actually very active, running around doing things, right? Making plans, executing them, talking on the phone, having meetings, doing homework, etc. All of these are actually burning calories, right? We don't go to the gym. We didn't have as much of a gym culture there. I would say 95% of China did not really care about the gym. 5% of the big metropolitan areas will have some chain gyms, but now they're closing up, partially due to COVID. But even before COVID, a lot of the gyms have been closed. Just that it's not our culture.
So tell us about how you're working with US high achieving professionals who they're busy, right? And they're sitting at a desk most of the day. So they're fairly sedentary, right? They're on the phone, they're on their computer. What's your approach to working with them to have a healthy lifestyle?
So the first thing is, I always tell people, you don't have to, if you're overweight, right? To solve this overweight problem, you don't really need to go to gym. And they always think this is unbelievable. But really, people's biggest misunderstanding, misconception of the thing about healthy eating and living a lean life, lean body, is that they always think it's about the food. It's about making plans. It's about counting and controlling, right? It's about exercising, CICO, calorie in, calorie out. But it's actually not like that. It's if you can turn your body, this is what I tell them, literally, if you can turn your body into working for you, because a lot of these things in terms of how to process the food, take advantage of the food, allocate the energy, burn the energy, it's actually its instincts, if you think about it, right? If you can turn your body into working for you again, you don't have to do the job because it's your body's job to lose weight. It's not yours. Okay. You can have a body that's working against you in terms of it's holding on to calorie burning. For example, it's not digesting food as it should. It's not being healed. It's not being nourished because you've been depriving yourself. Your body has been in a deprivation mode, for example, right? Or it's being pushed in the long run, like chronic inflammation mode, which means that it's getting stressed internally and attracting fat out externally. If you're having this kind of body, spend 10 hours in the gym during any week, okay? Do as much diet as you want to do. You're not going to get there because your body is in a way. So your ability to lose weight permanently and sustainably, depending on how your body, how much capacity your body has for that goal. It doesn't depend on you. It doesn't depend on your mind or willpower. So when you look at this thing from a totally different angle, you will see that it doesn't matter how much time you have on this. It doesn't matter if you have time for exercising 2 hours or 4 hours a week. It doesn't matter if you're spending time counting calories. All you need to do is to make sure that your body is doing the right thing. For example, your taste buds, we just talked about taste buds. So I would just use that example here. Your taste buds is asking for the right food. Your body has a sense of fullness and satiety that tells you unconsciously when to stop eating, so that you don't even have to have a thought process around it, that, let alone counting calories. If your body can do all of these for you, you don't need to do anything. So this is a thing I always explain to people once again, because whenever I tell them that you can lose weight while getting food freedom, they're like, this just sounds like a scam. This is a scam. I don't blame them. I honestly don't blame them, because they are, I mean, how many years of life have they spent in this culture? The entire culture here is brainwashed, is educated with the notion that you have to restrict yourself in order to keep the weight off. So that's the belief here. Yeah.
Tell me if I'm understanding you correctly, Leslie. It sounds like your approach is you have to be in touch with your body and understand what your body really needs and whether it's really hungry and what is that right? I mean, instead of just impulsively eating and just eating out of nervousness or compulsion, you have to listen to your body.
Even before you listen to your body, you have to make sure your body is sending you the right signals.
And how do you do that?
Well, I'll give you an example. So there are many things. Let's be more specific about it, because there are different kind of senses you have to be reconnect to and readjust. It's not like one formula for all. But when it comes to, let's say, the sense of satiety, which is critical because it tells you when to stop eating. If you have the accurate sense of satiety, you will never need to worry about overeating, right? Without counting. So a lot of people actually have that sense of fullness or sense of satiety distorted because they've been overeating for too many years, or they've been trying to comply with some calorie or number rule that they are not connected. They don't even listen to their body's signal. So what they've been doing along the way is that because they're working so hard to follow the rules and they suppress their feelings, these kind of signals in your body gets distorted. So we spend at least 2 weeks to get this sense readjusted. So there is a system there. But let me tell you this, it's always about taking the systematic, like step-by-step procedure to start, even before connecting with your senses, recognizing the senses. So what does that mean by being full? You have to understand that first. Now, it's not an intellectual idea, because people will tell you that, well, I mean, stop eating when you're full, and then they will think, oh, maybe I'm full now and stop. No, it's not like that. You have to think about, we have to really feel how certain part of your stomach is feeling.
So in essence, are you saying, say, in that particular part where you're practicing, satiation, right? You're practicing. Right. So for those 2 weeks, practically, in obviously, it's a lot more involved, but are you literally like eating a little bit of food and checking in with yourself, eating a little bit of food, checking in with yourself?
No.
To see how things are going? Or
that will be, no, you don't eat a little bit of food and check in with yourself all the time, because that will make it, the tricky part is that it might sound right to do that, because you have to make sure that you're reconnected to your senses. But the problem is that if you think about this journey wants you to think about food all the time, then you're still having this dietist mentality. You're still thinking about food all the time. So this is what food obsession is all about. But your end goal is trying to get away from the food obsession. right? I'll let you eat. I'll give you a guidance in terms of what you can eat without the guidance as to what you cannot eat, okay? But basically, I'll give you a ballpark into what you can eat, how to best organize your meals. Then you choose one of the options that fits your needs the best, right? You start eating. Then I have this, what is the techniques that you will implement while eating. And it's not like you checking with yourself every 5 minutes, but once you've accomplished the food, like once you have finished the meal and eaten all the food, you're gonna have to use this system that I give you to evaluate how you're feeling, not only mentally, but also physically and also energetically. Gotcha. So it's more just, it's more than, it's way more holistic than just about, you know, the numbers. Am I feeling it? It's not just about that. There has to be all rounded, because what do you mean by eating enough? If you feel like you're overly stuffed, but your energy level is really low, you probably haven't eaten enough or eaten right food, right? Then we have to look into that. So if you have to check in with yourself like once every 3 to 5 minutes, you're only looking at the small pieces and still losing the view of the entire picture. Right. So this is why it cannot be a 5-day process to help you readjust your sense of satiety or fullness. It has to be long enough, because you will have to wait some time to see where you are moving on different fronts. And usually along the way, people will feel like, oh my God, you know, I'm getting it more and more. You're still exploring, but usually around 2 weeks mark, you'll be there. And once you are there, you will have a lot of confidence, because now you know that you no longer need to count.
So instead of counting, you're getting in touch with your body and you're learning, this is as much as I need to eat, and I feel energetic and I feel satisfied and I'm good to go.
You are learning being unconsciously conscious about it. So let me tell you what the difference is between what you just said and what I'm saying now. When you said that you're learning, you know, connecting to your senses, you're right, okay? But that part, the later part, is the thought process into, this is how much I have to have, and I'm good to go now. That shouldn't be a thought process. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I understand.
Right.
Okay. So I get all that. But what about, do you counsel your clients on what to eat?
I will let them know some options into how you can organize your meals. But I don't give them a rule or a fixed meal plan that they can never go against. Here's the why. There's the why. Yeah. No, interesting story. When I first started this journey, there have been people asking me, Leslie, can you just let us know what you eat 3 times a day for 7 days? Then it's like a meal plan. We're just going to use repetitively using it, and then we should be fine and lose the 14 pounds like you did in a month in China. And like, okay, the problem is, sure, you will lose weight, that I can guarantee, okay, if you follow how I eat. But the problem is, that doesn't change your mentality of having to cling to a rule. Right. And that doesn't change your mentality of feeling something else that is not on my list is a taboo.
Right.
All right. So this is why I can't tell them exactly what to eat.
Is there some education though in, you know, whole foods are better than processed foods, for example?
Yeah, there will be the general idea, but it doesn't mean that you cannot eat, you know, processed food, because I think this is also another major misconception here. People tend to go to the extreme, one extreme from the other. When they say, I need to eat healthy, they basically ban themselves from eating all the, I don't know, even fruits, right? Because fructose, right? The truth is that just 5 minutes before I spoke to you, I had 2 Hershey chocolates. Okay. And if you open my fridge, which is right there right now, you're gonna see Coca-Cola. Okay, and it's not zero Coca-Cola. It's authentic full Coca-Cola, full calorie Coca-Cola. The only difference here is that when I have these things in my fridge, they probably got into my fridge, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. And right now I still have a whole box of what is it called? One of the chocolate brands. I just saw it when I opened the fridge. I forgot the name on top of my head. Okay. I think my husband bought it 3 or 4 weeks ago. We probably had one every once in a while. I'm not counting. I'm not journaling when I had one. That's the main difference. It's not like you can't have it.
Right.
It's how big of the portion does it take in your everyday life?
It's okay in moderation.
Everything is okay in moderation, even corn syrup, even though corn syrup, yes, it is a problem. It is a big problem food, but it is, yeah. If you are having, also another question people need to ask themselves is, why am I more inclined to want the trigger foods, or let's say sugar, than somebody who is holistically healthy? Because a lot of time people think this is a willpower game. And whenever they eat the chocolate, they get guilty and they're saying to themselves that I don't have willpower. How can I let it happen, right? But if we go back to what we just said just now, a while ago, about your body's senses, how it's programmed, right? If you have a body that is hardwired to make you want those things by sending you wrong hormonal triggers or chemical triggers, you can't fight it. So it's not a willpower game.
That's interesting.
Yeah. A lot of times people, well, I very much agree with you that there's all these different types of diets, whether it's Atkins or keto, low carb, intermittent fasting. They're very hard to sustain. And so you could get on it, and through willpower, you'll stay on the diet. But at some point, life happens, you get stressed out, and you can fall off the wagon. And so if you can do that shift that you're talking about, where it's a healthy eating lifestyle, then it's not an ongoing diet that you're conscious of and constantly trying to maintain. It's more of a lifestyle. But I also think that even if that's your lifestyle, there's still going to be times when you slip up, when you're stressed out and you do some stress eating, and I think
it's not a problem at all to do stress eating. Sometimes I stress eat, not a lot, but sometimes this is my way of doing it. I don't usually associate food with stress nowadays. Okay, I used to when I was at that weight, right? I used to, but now I have many ways of, let's say, releasing my stress, right? Sometimes if I have the mood to eat an ice cream, I just go for it. And honestly, I don't even call that stress eating. It's just like, I want to treat myself well, right? That makes me feel better. And if tomorrow when I'm stressed, I feel taking a walk is what fits my mood at the moment, I will do that. So I don't categorize this kind of eating with the situation, because here's a trick. You want to get out of stress eating, but the more you think that you're eating because of the stress, you're actually neurologically, you're forming a stronger association between the two. You don't realize it.
That's right.
That's why you can't think about it. So the thing is that the trick is, because you just talked about a lifestyle change. I think this brings up a really brilliant point, because the truth is, when you tell people this is going to be a lifestyle, what you need to make is a lifestyle change, that terrifies them. That really terrifies them, because they think, oh my God, that means that I have to make first of all, humongous change and sustain it for the entire life of the remaining 50 something years. Can I do it? It sounds discouraging to them.
Or just practically, going back to the busy professional, the people who are sitting in front of computers all day, who generally only get up maybe to go to the bathroom, get their coffee, and eat one time. The lifestyle part of that, when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, has to do with, forcing themselves to break the habit of the work or whatever activity they're doing. Because
now there's another trick then.
Yeah, because part of that lifestyle, and it's a sedentary lifestyle, is is by the end of your day, you're too tired to cook, or you're too tired to put together whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to go get a McDonald's and be done with it, because I got to be back here to work or
Yeah.
whatever, go to sleep or
Yeah.
whatever. Done.
Yeah.
You know,
And you
that-
haven't exercised and burned any calories.
yeah, then you missed your exercise time. It's like, oh man, it's 8 o'clock. I've been working 12 hours. I experience this all the time.
Right.
Literally, I'm up at 5:30 in the morning, and sometimes I'll work when it's really busy through till 7 p.m.
You're not overweight, Mark. You're not overweight. So that should not be a concern. But let me tell you this. This is also another idea, not just idea. I think it's fact now, but a lot of my students will find initially shocking. This is what I tell them, you know. If let's say for a year you have, no, this is for a fact, you have 365 days a year, right? Let's say at the beginning of the year, you tell yourself that, you know, for the most part of the year, majority part of the year, I'm going to have a fairly healthy lifestyle. I'm not talking about dieting, okay? I'm talking about fairly healthy lifestyle where I'm, you know, having good balance when eating. And let's say you don't have to force yourself to go to gym, but you just be somehow active whenever you can, all right? No stress on that, no pressure on exercising part. But I give myself a 20% of time as a time budget or allowance, because I'm going to go travel, because I'm going to go meet up with family during the vacation or holiday seasons, where I just go a little bit over the board a little bit, right? And I'm not talking about extreme binge eating, okay?
Right.
Just go overboard, have some beers, have some ice cream, have some really good food. If you are doing 80% of the time right, and you are letting yourself just relax and you know, go a little bit overboard over 20% of time. Here's the thing: most people are so easily stressed over 20% of the time. Then, like I just said, they damage the remaining 80% of the time, right? As a cost.
You're saying they get so frustrated that they blew their whatever they were on, that they're just forget
Yes.
it, and I'm gonna go.
No. They blew it. They're frustrated, and they spend the 80% of the time thinking I'm going to have to have another diet. Then diet mentality.
So they're obsessed about
right?
this, the less important part of the whole equation, and they're using up their
They're sacrificing more of life just to compensate for the 20% of the time they think they've done wrong. But here's the thing: I teach people this. All you need to do is to focus on the time that you've done it right, not done it wrong. And if you've done 80% of the time right, that 20% of time doesn't matter. All you need to do is just to keep going, because guess what? That's a part of life. Like having great time with family over delicious food and having a chocolate cake or a pumpkin pie should be a part of life.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so all you need to do is to focus on 80% of the time, because it's usually focusing on the 20% of the time when you think you've done wrong. First of all, you didn't do anything wrong. You're just enjoying life. It's a natural part of life, right? But you think you've done it wrong. And because of that, you start having this, let's say, very strict diet during the 80% of the time.
Yeah.
And then that backfires. That's how you never got out of the yo-yo dieting. Yeah. And when people, remember this time when one person hearing that immediately asked me, so you're talking about spending 20% of the time where you can have all of freedom, but 80% of the time when you are in good control. But what's the difference between this and cheat days? Because cheat days is the notorious, diet idea, right? It's fundamentally different in the sense that, first of all, even during 80% of the time, you're not on a diet. You're just living as a normal person in a normally balanced life, doing what you can, making, conscious choices about what to do. And 20% of the time, you're not extremely binge eating, right? And if we do the calculation, 20% of the time over the year of 365 days is how many days? Over 70 days. That's a big ballpark. That's a big time window where you can chill more than before, than normal, right? And this is the one I'm trying to teach them. Just stop thinking more about this much about the calories, because calories is secondary when it comes to your body working for you, and you automatically master this balance. So it's a very different notion in the sense that people used to think that it's about willpower, I have to control myself. But hey, it's not even about self-control. It's about self-mastery. Yeah. When you're a company CEO, you have a very efficient team, different departments, very efficient teams and different departments working effectively for you. You don't need to meddle, right? You just let the team do its job, then you get the revenue, you get to your goal. You're the same as a person because you're pretty much a CEO of your body. Your body is equipped with the full power to do the right things, eat the right things at the right amount. Just let it do it. Let it adjust itself, because when I lost the 50 pounds later on, I don't think I did a bit. My clients lose weight. At the beginning, it's very difficult for them to even digest the idea of not counting anything, because that's the number one rule that they have to accept before coming onto the program. But this is what I show them. Usually after 3 or 4 weeks, we have a weigh-in, okay? They stand on the scale. When they see in their own eyes that the scale number comes down by 10 pounds, 15 pounds, usually not over 15 pounds, around 4 weeks mark, okay? But when they see the scale number coming down, despite the fact that they had pretty good satisfaction and freedom and didn't even count anything, that is the emotionally charged moment that neurologically breaks their old pattern of beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Cool. So this is a time when the old belief that I have to control food, count calories in order to keep my weight at bay, that old notion formulated over the past 3 or 4 decades is immediately shattered just at that point.
So you're working with clients, they've got these ingrained beliefs that you're trying to shatter, and they have their way in, and that's a great positive impact in shifting their mindset.
Yeah.
How long do you typically continue to work with your clients until they're comfortable that they could sustain this new approach?
My program is the 10-week program. The standard one is a 10-week program. So it's actually stage by stage. Okay. So mindset, routine, and physical senses, inner senses, they should see weight loss along the way. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not like you have to learn all the stuff and then apply them and then to find the weight loss. They should see weight loss along the way. That's why I'm saying the beliefs are changed along the way, right? And then they also now get rid of the food obsession, because now as they practice it, now they realize that food is not even the major core issue here.
Right. So it's just a 10-week program, and then you feel they're equipped enough to go.
But then we have the last module of the program is called sustaining it.
Okay.
But really, there's not much sustaining to do. It's just like when you have written an algorithm. The algorithm, in order for it to work efficiently, you have to give it data. Mm-hmm. The more data it gives it, the more efficiently it refines itself, the more efficiently it works, right? So the first few modules of the program is like we created a new algorithm. We let it run by the information and experience that you're having on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Then we make sure we aim at making the algorithm established before we get to the sustaining. Sustaining is mainly about giving us an extra cushion of time to make sure that it is still working.
Right. So you've been doing it for 8 years now, this practice? Have you checked in with any of your older clients to see how they're doing?
We always do. Actually, as a standard package is that after 10 weeks of working together, so the time remaining 3 months afterwards, for every month, we're going to have a check-in, because I honestly want to make sure that things are all good on your side. And if you have any, let's say sometimes life happens, right? If you need some support. But to be honest, at that point, you should be all good, because you've already got and established everything that needs to be established for you to get through those, life changes without facing the repercussion on the weight front. But that's a support thing. Then around six months mark, so after you graduate, 6 months later, there's going to be a phone call. I offer it. Not everybody come to it because some people are like, oh, I'm on vacation, I'm all good now. You know, 1 year mark, there's going to be another checking. I haven't done anything over a year yet. It's a long roster of names that you have to call.
Yeah.
Are you so are you typically set up as a one-on-one type of thing so people can join at any time? Are you group coaching? We have a cohort of 5 or 6 people that
there's a cohort. There's usually a cohort, and I have 2 elements. The basic things which you can do on your own, and you also need to access anytime, anywhere you are. It's actually pre-recorded on the course website. Okay. Now the other half is what I call the focused reconditioning work. That will be done during the weekly live session. So basics in terms of the general guidelines as to how you can eat, stuff like that, it will be in the course, recorded. But when it comes to the major shifts, it's usually happening on more of the personal level during the weekly live sessions. So if you have any questions, they have questions, they ask right away. And they can also follow closely guidelines when I perform them.
Do the majority of your clients come in and kind of land and are completely forthcoming, or do you have to work through like the first session, work through all of that stuff to get people to, number one, open up and actually speak on your live sessions,
Always.
but also work through cutting through some of the bullshit, right?
Always.
Cutting through some of the lying to themselves.
Always.
Oh yeah, I don't eat that much. I barely eat sugar. You know, I barely drink and all that stuff. Like cutting through
depending
all
on what kind of beliefs. If you have the belief that I might want to do another diet before I can learn to do this holistically, sustainably, then I won't let you in.
Yeah.
Because you're not mentally prepared for.
So you have a phone call with them before to kind of go through a lot of that.
Always.
Stuff,
I have to make sure that this person is physically, mentally, and emotionally ready for it.
Right.
If that person tells me that, you know what, I think I'm having depression nowadays, then I'll be like, okay, you know, you have something that's a bigger priority that you have to fix.
Right.
Then you can go get the treatment for the depression. And when you're better, when you're cured from that, we can talk about how we can solve this particular problem. Because in that situation, if you're really anxious and depressed, you won't be in the mode of doing this journey.
Right.
Then you'll be missing the time, missing courses, the homework, right? There's still going to be some homework there for sure, because it's simple, it's not easy, because you're talking about a long-term pattern interruptive change, right? So yes, there's a call. There's a call. I want to make sure that we're, you know, on different fronts. It's a good timing for us to work together.
I think that's wise, right? Because not everybody, I was just thinking about like, I was actually thinking about the medical field and how really, you know, it requires people to, it's so weird that the setup there, right? Because it requires people to be 100% honest. And sometimes there will be this kind of laying it all out because they are a doctor, right? And sometimes there's this weird relationship where they're afraid that they're going to get judged by the authority figure in their lives, and they don't give all the information, and they need to give the information because something's going on.
My friend is a doctor, and I always talk to her that your patient tell me more than they tell you. It's true, because when I ask her, well, she is a pediatrician, so it always happens to her that somebody visits her office. It's a kid, right? The kid is overweight or even obese. The parent is having the same thing. So she is very cautious in terms of pointing that out to the, usually hesitant even to point it out to the parent, because whenever she says it to the parent that your kid is obese, she's also talking about, like, unavoidably talking about the parent as well, because apparently the parent is, right, overweight at least. So it's difficult for her to have an open-minded conversation with that person. But it's also different in the sense that when these people go to her office, visit her office, they, a lot of time, it's not, they go not because they want to seek help for obesity. or the weight problem. A lot of time it's because the child has some symptoms or there's a
Right,
well child,
right.
right?
That's right.
So they're not open to talking about it.
Yeah.
But usually people who get onto my phone calls, I would say over 99% of them are prepared to talk about it openly.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Well, they're reaching out to you. They want
They want help.
help in this area.
They want help. And also, even before they come talk to me and schedule a phone call, I already have a system in place to let them know what the methodology is like.
Mm-hmm.
So the procedure is that they can watch a free masterclass where I talk about the system unreservedly. This is what we saw first, and next. So first of all, they know that I have a solution. So I think this is very important, that they have trust in me, right?
Yeah,
And then they really have this problem they need to solve. Then they know that I can solve the problem. Then this conversation, it's a completely different dynamic compared to what you would have in your doctor's office. And yes, Mark's right in the sense that some doctors really judge the people. And that makes them even more hesitant to tell the truth.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Tell our listeners where they can get more information about your program and how they can reach out to you.
So my website is www.riseling.com. It's RISELEAN. So if you're struggling with the weight pattern, the weight pattern, the eating pattern, or even food obsession, the first stop for you should be get onto my website, and there is the free masterclass that I just talked about. You can register for it for free and listen right away about exactly what you need to do, what we need to do to solve the problem holistically and thoroughly. If you think that this is the program, the solution is going to help you profoundly, you're more than welcome to book a call with me. Now we can look further into, we look at three things, okay? First of all, what has it been like for you so far, and what's working for you, what's not working for you, because we can look at your history to see where is the missing link, right? And then we'll also look into where it's going to be, what your destination goal is. Okay. Now, from where you want to be and where you are now, we can have an idea as to what are the actual steps you need to take. Because to be honest, even though I offer group coaching and usually the curriculum is pretty much the same, there's always going to be some customization here to there to different people, right? Maybe it's on a psychological level, maybe it's a belief thing, maybe it's more of the habit thing, right? Eating habit or eating preference thing. So I need to understand where you're coming from, what your challenges are. Then if we're a good fit, I'm going to show you exactly how we can work together. But however, if somehow, there is another resource that works better for you, I'll just refer you to that resource. So that's how it works.
Well, that sounds really interesting. And it sounds like a really great service.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I try to.
Very good. And when they call, are you still able to handle all of the calls yourselves, or do you have other team members that are?
I used to have, then I had to let them go, to be honest, because there's a fine line between having a genuine conversation with people versus making sales, right? So
it sounds like this isn't, it's interesting because I can see that things can turn into a sales call, right? Whereas when you're talking, like, I can imagine the value of watching the masterclass and having a actual phone call for you. It's not great for you, right? But like having a phone call with you, because you can tell that there's the genuineness coming through.
Yeah.
And
the person coming to me, I want them to get something out of it. It doesn't have to be a contract we sign to work together, really, right. Because so far I already have the statistics. I know, roughly how many people I speak to, this number is going to sign up for. For that, it's not even a priority when I speak to a person. I really want to know where the person is stuck, and if we can solve the problem, at least I can show that person what are the action steps taken. Mm-hmm. So even just that will be a lot of value to him, right? So it's a business, but it's a people's business.
Sure. Sure. That's great. Well, yeah, thank you so much. This has been great. And
Thank you,
very
guys.
Yeah,
interesting
thank you,
stuff.
Leslie. Terrific conversation.
Talk to you
I'm
later. Oh yeah, what was
I'm really warmed up for the day now.
there you go.
I'm ready for a drink.
There you go. Well, have a Coke. It's in your fridge.
Oh yeah. Well.
Bye guys.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
10X for Gen XYZ is hosted by Zach Winter and Mark Adair Rios, co-founders of Prosperity CRE, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and building long-term wealth. If you like the podcast, please give us a positive rating and subscribe to be notified about future content. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our approach to real estate investing, you can download a free copy of our real estate investment book, Investing for Cash Flow and Long-Term Wealth, by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thank you and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes.